get started and just let our hosts, co-hosts introduce themselves, our speakers that are going to be talking today, helping us out. First, we have Mickey and Mallory with the Casual Swingers joining us. Guys, would you just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, how long you've been non-monogamous, and just a little 2 minutes about you. Mallory might need to take that one.
Apparently, it's my job.
You're smarter, funnier, and prettier than me.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for inviting us, guys. We really appreciate it. So we're Mickey and Mallory of the Casual Swinger podcast, as well as Casual Toys. We've been a part of the lifestyle community now for me, the better part of 17 years, him more than that, but I won't call him out and give away his age.
31.
30. Yeah. So we're based out of Central Florida. You guys may have seen us on other episodes with Scott and April, along with some other folks here on this call, and we're very grateful to be here during this discussion.
Yeah, just got home from Hito, so we're spotting a tan.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
In
little
places
bit of a
you can't
glow.
talk about at parties.
Well, our parties.
Well, our parties you can. That's true.
Fun parties. All right. And then we have Catherine. Can we hear Catherine?
We can see her nodding.
With Expansive Connection Coaching.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and my co-leader, Meshai, is working on signing in. There she is. It looks like there are two Catherine Scantlins because I forwarded the link. So don't be fooled. We don't have the same name. We just work for the same company. So we are therapists and coaches that work in the lifestyle and ethical non-monogamy and poly space, open marriage, the whole gamut, as well as the vanilla world. We don't discriminate, but this is certainly our favorite population to work with because we find that you all are really damn motivated to keep your relationship strong and healthy for all the fun benefits. And so we love to educate, we love to nerd out, we love to share resources, we love to help people as they've educated themselves and they get stuck, come to us, and we help them work through what is uniquely their issue so that they can move on and enjoy the sexy fun. Anything you want to add, Meshai?
That probably wraps it up. I mean, we love our clients. We love meeting people in real life. Zoom's great, but like seeing you guys in person, just hits the spot for us. And we are really kind of passionate about educating and keeping our communities going and changing culture. So.
Absolutely. And we will be being better at being bad again. Yay. Meshai and I got to come last year. We wouldn't miss it for the world. And we've both been my business has been in the non-monogamy space for about 7 years now. And I've been on my journey about 10. And Meshai, what are you, about 6, 7, something like that?
Yeah, I think I'm going into year 6 now. I feel like that dates me, and also it makes it really good at the same time. I don't know. Yeah, I've been doing my own journey for 6 years. I've been with Catherine since 2020. Think, are we missing anything else? I'm certified in trauma therapy as well as sex therapy. And I've been doing marriage therapy. I have a degree in marriage and family therapy since 2018. So I really am passionate about relationships.
Very cool. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay, we're Scott and April. We are the creators of naughtygym.com. It's an online health, workout, fitness, nutrition platform and a lifestyle community. We've been in various versions of an open relationship for about 8 or 9 years now. And, we're happy to be a part of this visibility week that Open has put together. I think it was 40 events across 5 different countries. So you guys are part of a much bigger project. So we're excited to help out. And we're going to discuss tonight the ways of going about protecting your identity, if that is part of what you're doing in the lifestyle, wanting to make sure you stay anonymous. But even more importantly, in the event that your identity doesn't remain hidden, we're going to help show you how to build a plan and handle all the communication that you are probably going to be faced with going forward once you're outed.
Or if you don't want to hide and you can be out, how to handle those difficult conversations with your family or children or coworkers, employers, whatever that may be. So we were at the unfortunate end of being outed without our consent. And fortunately, we had already had in place a game plan of what to do, who we were going to contact first. We had talked about it in great detail, who was the first person that I would call, who was the first person he would call, so that when we woke up that morning and found out that we had been outed, instead of spending time, how did this happen? And kind of it's going to be a gut punch, but it gave us a clear path forward so that we knew what to do to kind of mitigate some damage. We knew what we were going to say to what family members. And so that really helped us. So we've really kind of championed our friends in the lifestyle who are non-monogamous to also have a game plan.
Yeah, and before I think it's easy to make the potential mistake of thinking, well, if it happens, I will start addressing it then. But the benefit of having this literal written plan in place is if it happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, as April said, it's going to be a real gut punch. And I mean, it's going to be a mega impact on your emotional state. And a lot of times when things like that happen, our instincts are to just curl up in bed and try to hide and wait it out. And all the emotional turmoil can sometimes paralyze you. So when you have that document that you can turn to in that emotional state and just say, look, this was the plan we had. We're just going to follow it and do the best we can with it. It's such a relief to know that you don't, in the middle of all of that, have to try to figure it out on the fly, that you've got that plan in place, ready to go.
Yeah.
So this is literally something you should be writing down after this session is over. We want you to build some sort of document that you can, in the event that this does happen, refer to it and use it. And one of the first things that you need to do is put in order a list of all of the people you think maybe you might have to talk to. Now, there's some people you're going to have to talk to: family, potentially coworkers or employers, children. Everybody's going to have that core list of people that they know they're going to have to talk to and address right away. And you need to write their names on a piece of paper. Number one should be the first person you're going to call, and number two, the second, and work your way down that list all the way maybe to even distant connections like third cousins that you're really close to, or extended business relationships. Anybody that you think might be impacted or could impact your life if they know about your current relational status.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we had that plan, it wasn't necessarily that we wanted to have those conversations. It was more out of necessity, but we wanted our narrative to be the one that our loved ones heard first. So we knew that some of them were going to hear things from other people or maybe on social media. And we felt that it would be best to just head all of that off and have those conversations. And that really worked out in our favor. They were thankful that we came to them because they did eventually hear things, but most of the time what they're going to hear from other people is going to be way worse than what reality actually is. And so if you can have those conversations in a loving way with them, most of the time it will be receptive. Sometimes it won't be, but at least they're hearing it from you, hearing your narrative.
And so what we would suggest is writing down a short elevator pitch of exactly what you're going to say, even if you have to just read it word for word, because in the moment it's too emotional to have that conversation. And that's the reason you have this little elevator pitch, is because it'll be difficult in those moments. But you write down just a short paragraph or two of exactly what you want to say, your narrative, your story, what you want them to hear, because absent of them hearing it from you, they're going to fill in all the details with the worst imaginable stuff. Mm-hmm. So you're going to write, after you've listed out all the people you're going to talk to and in what order, you're going to write out what your little 5-minute speech is going to be to them.
Right. Yeah. And if you are in a position, now we understand that there's some people that just can't be out because you can lose your job. And that's one of the reasons that Open is trying to normalize it. And helping, I think in California, it's legal now where it's a protected class. Non-monogamy is a protected class, but most places you can still lose your job. You can, people are fighting for custody of their children right now in the state of Alabama because they're in a non-monogamous relationship. And so we understand that some people can't be out, but if you can, we would encourage you to be out, because it's only going to help normalize this for everyone else if they know somebody. It was just like when LGBTQ rights, and Scott says this all the time. He grew up in small town Alabama where he didn't even know a gay person. And so it was easy that he was entrenched in religion. It was easy for him to kind of judge that lifestyle until he met somebody who was gay and was like, wait a minute, why am I supposed to treat this person any different? And it totally shifted his world perspective. And so there are people who don't, or think they don't know someone who's non-monogamous or in a poly relationship or whatever, but chances are they do, because it's about 1 in 5 that have been involved in a non-monogamous relationship.
So your first 2 steps, you're writing in the list of all the people you're going to talk to. The second step is you're going to create your little elevator pitch or the explanation of your story. And then the third part is you're going to allow them the space to ask you questions. And you're going to try your best not to be defensive, but some of the people, especially those closest to you, may have some really difficult and serious questions to ask. You have the right to tell them it's none of their business, but you may have different answers you want to give depending on the person that you're talking to. You may want to say something different to your daughter than you do your boss. Mm-hmm. If so, you want to create the different stories for those different people. But you do want to allow everybody to ask you questions until they feel at least as comfortable as they can feel that they've heard directly from you what your story is and what your reasons are.
Yeah, and I think Catherine and Meshai may have something to add on how to navigate some of those tough conversations.
But you guys, you're up.
There we are. I couldn't get to my mute button. We do have a few things. So we'll start with remembering that the people that love you, the most important thing is they want to know that you're okay, and they want to know how it affects them. Maybe not even in that order, because we all can be a little selfish. Like, all right, how does this affect me? And are you okay? So remember that those are the themes that they're looking for. And one of the things that, and we're going to talk about this kind of in 2 different ways. Most of what we're going to be sharing right now is talking to other adults about this. I did a whole podcast with Libby Seinbeck of Making Polyamory Work about tips and ideas for coming out to your children. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time here talking about that, because there's a whole hour conversation about that. And you're welcome to reach out to Meshai and I if you have questions about that. But with either kids or adults that you love, consider breadcrumbing. So this is the I was watching the end of that movie and that Twilight series, and she was really in love with both of them. Like, what do you think that book would have been like if she just had a big vampire werewolf puppy pile?
Every time I see that movie, that is exact. Why are you choosing? Keep going. Sorry.
All of them. Or, have you ever thought about how, we're expected to love all of our children the same, but we're only supposed to love our partner. That's the only person we can love like that. Or, we accept that we have different love for grandma and grandpa. Like, just starting to have those types of conversations to get people thinking can be a nice way. Or if there's something in the news, like, wow, did you see that article about? So breadcrumbing can be a way to get the conversation started where it isn't just about you.
I think one of the other ones is also safety. Like, a lot of your friends want to know, like, are you safe? Is your relationship safe? Like, should I actually be worried? And so maybe talking about like sexual health. I know that's probably one of the first things after they figure out, like, are you okay? Blink twice if you need me to open the car door. Like, they want to know, are you being like sexually safe? And then making sure that your relationship is healthy, especially if they really love both you and your partner. They just want to know that you guys aren't like, this isn't the path to splitting up.
Absolutely. And then the other thing they're going to want to know is, with that relational health, are you happy? And making sure that you explain to them why this gives you happiness and what it gives you personally and what you feel like it gives your relationship. So, if it's really helped your body image or your self-esteem, or you've learned how to have better boundaries, or you've learned to be more secure in your no, or whatever, like the things that you've personally learned, and then talk about how it strengthens your relationship, that's going to help them get more on board. Because again, if they love you, they want to make sure you're safe and they want to make sure that you're happy. And you may have to connect those dots because it may not make sense to them how in the world you could be happier doing this, or how it could make you a stronger person or a stronger couple.
I also think that one of the reasons a lot of people will tell people is because it's like, I've told you everything else in my life, and keeping this from you feels like I'm lying to you, like on a day-to-day basis. And so sometimes it like pulls it out of you, like wanting to be intimate with a person on all levels. And so when you tell them that, sometimes it's nice just to be able to say, like, I want to be authentic. I've never hidden anything from you before. This is one of those things I don't want to continue. And especially if it's a deep relationship like that, they might be like, what's going on here? So sometimes it's just nice to be able to be clear about why you're telling them, and what you hope revealing that information will accomplish for you both in that relationship.
Yeah. And make sure that you're really clear about that within yourself and within your partnership first, because if you're not clear about why you're telling them, it's going to be confusing. That confusion or that static is going to muddy the waters as you tell them. So make sure you understand your why before, and make sure you share it with them. Also, don't make this mistake that I did the first couple that we told, like just good friends. We told them separately. I told the wife, and my husband told the husband. And then after my husband told the husband, that husband and I went for a run together, which is a pretty normal thing. And I was like, well, I heard that, so, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. And so we're running along and we get to the end, and I'm literally have my leg like up on the hood of my car stretching, and he's right here. And he's like, well, I guess I have one more question. Like, are you guys interested in us? And I like put my leg down as quickly as I could. I was like, no, oh my God, no. And so make sure if you are propositioning them, again, make sure that they know that that's why you're telling them. But if you're not, that is such a misconception that, we want everybody and we're going to try to, we're going to win toasters on the Ellen show if we convert everybody. So make sure you're clear that you're not recruiting them.
Yeah, that's a good.
And then
Sorry, go
and
ahead.
then also making sure that they understand like privacy around this. Like, are you asking them to keep this secret for you? Are you asking them to keep this private? How private does it need to be? Like, I don't mind if you tell people, but like, don't tell them X, Y, and Z, or like, what are the parameters around privacy that you need? And also being able to say it, just because we say it doesn't mean that people readily assume that we actually want to keep this private. So being able to state that is really important. And sometimes it's nice to be able to talk to people about the difference between privacy and secrecy. Like, there's some things that I want to keep private, and this is a secret. And maybe that for me right now, this is a secret that I'm sharing just between you, besides like being private and what that means to me.
And if you know that you want to ask someone to keep it private, I always think it's respectful to give them an out before they know the information. So say, there's something I want to share with you, and I know it's going to be hard for you to say no because you're going to really be curious, but I am going to ask you to keep this private. And if that feels like too much a burden, or like, I want you to keep it private from mom and dad if you're telling your siblings, but is that too much a burden for you to keep it private? Give them that out at the beginning. I just think that's a respectful thing if you're going to ask someone else to keep your secret. And then once you tell them, if they're looking at you like deer in the headlights, it might be nice to say something like, I know this is a lot, and I'm sure you're going to have questions, or you're going to have like flashes across your screen. Come to me and talk to me about them. Please know that I have told you this because I trust you and I want more openness in our relationship. So please come to me. Don't go look on the internet for the answer to this. Don't go watch the Playboy channel swing and assume that we're all like that. Like, come to me, because whatever you are going to fill in, it's probably weirder than what's actually happening. So just really encourage that open dialogue. And the other thing I've said to people is, and honestly, the people that I've told that haven't asked me questions, it's so awkward. So please talk to me about it. So I always ask for that.
Yeah. And One of the things that may be surprising when you talk about these conversations is that a lot of times, at least in our situation, people didn't ask us very many questions. They didn't want to ask. They didn't want to know. They didn't want us explaining it. And so you have to be open to the people that you're approaching may really not be that receptive to hearing anything about it. All of these plans and tips that we're giving, and it's all great advice, may not really help much in the moment. These conversations can be difficult, and sometimes people don't want to hear it. You know, they're entrenched in their worldview, and that's, you know, that's the only thing that's comfortable for them. So just know that a lot of these conversations, and unfortunately, maybe all of them, depending on where you live and what part of the country, are going to be difficult, and people may not want to hear it. Don't let that derail you from your plan, because one of the temptations that we had was to dig deep and to try to figure out exactly where the leak happened, who it came from, and then go after them in any way that we could. All right.
That would not have been productive.
Yeah.
And it would have just wasted bandwidth and emotions that we didn't have in the first place. And so ultimately it didn't matter. We knew that it was an eventuality that it would come out. And that's why we had the plan. So wasting time and energy and emotions on the how did this happen wasn't going to serve us in any capacity. And so we moved forward. Catherine or Meshai, could you talk a little bit about how you would navigate those conversations with maybe children?
Sure. And I will, like I said, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I have a free resource that you can have.
Right.
But I would say the only thing that's a little shift, remember how I said the adults in your life want to know that you're safe and happy and how it affects them. Similar to kids, except they want to know if they're safe and if they're secure and how it's going to affect them. They might care if it makes you happy, but really children need to hear from us. We got you. You're safe. Mommy and daddy love each other, or, you know, whatever. Like, you already know these people. Your life isn't going to change. We just didn't want to lie to you anymore. So just helping them be able to say, okay, this is safe enough to go back to Minecraft. Cool. Also, don't overload them with information. Give them a little bit and let them lead with the questions.
And would that be
But
different? I'm guessing if they were older children.
For sure.
Yeah, they're probably like, I just want to know that you're happy. Don't tell me the details. You know, like I think that's how most older kids get. But I think also, like, if you are outed and your kids are involved on some level, it's definitely making sure the kids are safe, but also making sure that you have like a game plan for comforting them if like their playmates change or people that have been around them for a long time start to distance and they're wondering why people don't have sleepovers or come around anymore. Like being able to have a game plan for that as well.
Absolutely. And with that, whether it's adults or kids, a little bit to what you were saying, Scott, before you tell anyone, make sure that your comfort and your truth is so deep. Like, think about a well. A well is so deep to get down to that water, that wellspring of truth, we'll call it. And there's this much of the well that sticks out of the ground. And so if somebody hates this idea and wants to blame you, shame you, whatever, and they want to stick their elbow into that little bit of the well sticking up, that's okay, because it's not going to change how deep your truth and what is right for you, how deep that is. And so if you do get that, it makes it easier. It's still going to hurt. If somebody you love wants to judge you, it is still going to hurt, but it's easier to realize that that's them and not you. And if you don't clear that static, again, I like this word tonight, if you don't clear that static, they're going to feel that, and they might even feel like they could change your mind. That's not available.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, feel free to give people resources if they want them. Help, like, I have a whole document about what about the children that I shared with my parents, because that was their biggest concern. Or, you know, like, share education with them, because sometimes it's easier for them to hear it not from you. I'm also going to drop the link to the podcast that I did on making polyamory work about the kids, since we're not spending as much time with that, for those of you that might be curious.
Okay, yeah,
That'd be great.
that's what we're just going to ask. When y'all are when Mickey and Mallory are up here in just a second, if you could drop any of those free resources that could be of value in the chat there, and people can download them.
Will do.
All right, Mickey, Mallory, you guys are up. Mickey and Mallory are going to talk to you about how not to make some of the mistakes we made digitally that can get
Right.
you
Yeah.
exposed.
If you're wanting to protect your anonymity online, because there's a lot, we're on Facebook, but we see people who have fake names, but they're still using their picture and things like that. So Mickey and Mallory, are you here still?
We are.
Yeah, we're still
Okay.
here. You nailed it. You nailed it. So when it comes to online, I think the overarching mantra is there isn't anything as anonymity, but there are things you can do to protect yourself and your privacy.
Well, there's things you should not do, right? Frankly, there's not things
Very
you can
much
do.
so.
There's things you should not do.
Mhm.
Because the more you do, I mean, social media, if you think about the inception of social media, and yes, I'm old enough to know when this happened and how it happened, and it makes me feel bad and everything hurts just talking about it. But, when we go back to the inception of social media, the object was to find as many people like you as humanly possible. So if we ignore Tom and the mighty MySpace for a minute, we look at, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, the whole thing was literally supposed to be just for Harvard students. It was a face match. That was the whole idea. So the whole thing, the inception of Facebook, was about finding faces around you. Now, today, it's not different. Meta's entire business is almost entirely predicated on monetizing your interests, your desires, your behaviors, and your face. Think about that for a minute, because your face is, frankly, the thing everybody is trading on. What you do, how you do it, and what you look like when you do it.
Yeah, it's your social media digital fingerprint right now. And
Now it says it all the time.
everything's associated with it.
If it's free, you're the problem.
100%.
Right. So anywhere you use your face, other people are going to find it. So we're going to start with this. And by the way, Scott and April, I do want to point out that I didn't say a word in the whole first 30 minutes, and that was awesome. It was force of will.
We're so proud of you.
We're very proud.
I don't know I don't know how to handle it.
He's going to get a cookie after this.
There's 2 holes in my tongue from my incisors, but I'm fine. So the first thing we want you guys to know is, no matter where you do it, no matter how you do it, if your face is on it, it's going to be suggested to people that know you and follow you in your vanilla profiles.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you create a secondary Facebook page that says Billy Bob and, insert female name here.
Martha Sue.
Martha Sue. Billy Bob and Martha Sue. From this,
we live in Central Florida.
Yeah, there we got a lot of those.
Yeah.
So Billy Bob and Martha Sue have Facebook pages, but they start Billy and Martha LS on, that's their Facebook page. They put a picture of them on it, same picture maybe they have on SDC or SLS. They put it out there. Next thing you know,
it can be private, by the way.
Yeah, it can be private. And they still get a phone call from their family going, hey, why is this being suggested to me? I think you got hacked.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually how that conversation starts. I think you got hacked.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is they're giving you an opportunity to lie to them. I say, don't lie to them about it. Say, no, that is ours, and it's for something else we do. And if they continue the conversation and you want to continue the conversation, follow all the good advice you've already gotten. Don't take my advice, because I'm much more confrontational than everybody else on this call.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And a lot of people, I think, maybe half the room knows that general knowledge, maybe half of you don't. So I think Sexy Twitter or Sexy X is a place that the space is occupied to share, ideas, as well as maybe some lewd and safe for work, not safe for work content. I will say, as far as sharing copyrighted content, which means anything that you own, that is one of the biggest platforms where people steal imagery and reshare it for other purposes. So just know that even if your face isn't in it, there's someone that might want to monetize on it. So
yep. So I'm going to make a statement, and then we're going to back it up and follow it up a little bit. So the number one way people get outed is their own behaviors.
Yeah.
The number one way we get outed is the things we do ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures we take, places we go, things we do. So I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
We were outed in our family fairly early on because we go to Jamaica a lot, and we made a lot of friends in Jamaica. And all of a sudden our friend circle got very broad and very wide and started encompassing all walks of life and all ages. And our family started going, wow, what's in Jamaica? What are you doing down there? Going to hedonism?
Yeah. Eventually someone put the 2 and 2 together, because it is, once you make, that scale of friends, it's really hard to remember everyone's backstory, especially if you're integrating them into your mainstream life. So at one point we just went, it's just Jamaica. And effectively, that's how we ended up outing ourselves.
We did.
But it was a gentle blow for us. We were very fortunate.
It was. And again, we handled it a little bit differently than I think it was dictated here. But there's no right way to do this, by the way. There's ways that have worked for other people, but your individual relationships are going to dictate this. And also your individual presence on social media, and also your status in this world. So let's say you're in the military and you hold a top secret clearance. Your duty is to report anything that could be used against you to your security officer. That doesn't mean they'll kick you out over it. You just have to be honest. That's the most important thing to keeping your clearance. A lot of people, even people with clearances that I've talked to, don't necessarily realize that. However, conduct on becoming an officer can encompass a lot of things. So you have to be careful of that if you're an officer, as opposed to just having a clearance. So things like that can matter a great deal. My suggestion to you is, should you not want to get outed, do not use any free social media for your lifestyle activities with your face. Use STC, use SLS, use Cassidy, use local sites, anything that's behind a paywall where the photos are not promoted or advertised.
This also means don't use a cloud drive, Google Drive, iCloud, any of those places. Unfortunately, that's a currency. Even if they're semi-safe for work content on there, it's a free service and you're the product. And unfortunately, those things get hacked all the time. So
I would also suggest avoiding telling tattoos. Meshai just posted the swinger symbol, and it's probably an article if they have it there. They're pretty good folks. I like them. But I'll tell you something about symbols and just, symbology, so to speak. I'm sure there's a better word for it that I'm just not thinking of right now. But the gist of it is, as soon as it becomes common knowledge, generally speaking, we quit using it. So think back to white rocks, stars, flamingos, black rings on the left hand.
I don't know, the pineapples.
The pineapples hung around.
They're here to stay.
The pineapples hung around for a while, but if you have a tattoo of an upside down pineapple on your shin and you go to the company picnic, don't be surprised, okay? Don't be shocked that all of a sudden you become the subject of water cooler fodder. Now, and when somebody wants to have that conversation with you, and maybe they're not having it with you, as a matter of fact, they usually don't. They have it with each other. It becomes the topic of conversation. Are they or aren't they? Is he or isn't he? And I think it's horseshit, but, and I have definitely had those conversations. You've had better, probably softer conversations than I have.
I've been very fortunate. And I could probably go down that rabbit hole, but something I definitely wanted to cover is messaging services. I think every community or even when you start communicating with people on the STC, you want to take it offline, but maybe you don't want to give out your personal phone number. So you have Kik, Telegram, MeWe, all these other apps, and some of them are worse behaved than others, where our experience with Telegram, for example, the second we logged in and we had pseudonyms, told everyone in our contacts list so that Mickey and Mallory were on there, and our folks and like teachers are like, who are these people
literally
using your phone number?
5 minutes after installing Telegram, I got a message from my high school marketing teacher going, who's Mickey?
Uber embarrassing. So we actually use a spoofing app that gives us a resident like local area phone number. It's called Sideline. Is it a free service?
It's $99 a year.
Okay, so it's a paid for service, but we wanted that comfort to know that we had a designated phone number to associate with and have general communication with someone while also saving our identity. So, my contact information and everything's available on my iPhone doesn't go over to a person that I maybe just met. So.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
use some caution with these messaging apps.
Correct, and Raquel just said something in the chat. She said it's not safe to be out everywhere. I respectfully disagree with you. We are out everywhere, and
doesn't necessarily make it safe.
Walking across the street and breathing are not safe. However, if you don't want, because one thing she said that is dead on, spot on, agree with you to my dying breath, is that we're not a protected class, and that's been covered a few times. As an unprotected class, what do we do? How do we deal with it? On social media and in other places, it just kind of is. We really don't talk about it. We really don't make it a big part of, like, for example, if you go to my Facebook page, and most of you guys know me, I'm looking across the names here. If you go find me on Facebook, I go by my middle name in my regular life. I go by my first name in the lifestyle. I'm not that creative. So when we do those things, you find me on Facebook. I don't wear casual swinger shirts on my Facebook page. I don't wear, casual swinger shirts anywhere except casual swinger branded stuff or lifestyle branded stuff. What I would consider that is not hiding. I'm just not brandishing that aspect of my life. And there's a world of difference between being who you are and expecting to be celebrated for it. If you brandish it, It's their right to talk about it to you. But if you don't, it's not. And that's on your social media or anywhere else. You have a right. And this is to Scott's point earlier, to say, I have created a boundary. And I think it's very important for all of us. If you create that guideline for how you want to talk to people, include your own boundaries to remind yourself what you're willing to talk about and what you're not willing to talk about, and how you're going to comport yourself on social media in order to deal with the possibility of things like getting outed. Now, other things you can do to avoid getting outed, obviously, you can wear a mask. It will screw with the algorithm a little bit, but it's just silly. Honestly, I would suggest the best thing we could all do for ourselves, don't bring your lifestyle to social media. And this all goes back to a rule that Mallory and I talk about on the podcast from time to time. When people say, I've got this one couple, we've been friends for years, I think she's super hot, he's into my wife, we're going to talk to them about playing. Do not do that. That is a violation of the first commandment of swinging, which is make swingers your friends. Don't make your friends swingers.
That's an excellent point. Anything else about safety online, though?
No, don't be online. That's how to not. You want to be safe online? Don't be online. That's how you do it. Because
Well, and I want to address one point, because there was some conversation going on in the chat here about, while I think we all agree, and part of the reason for Open's existence, the organization itself, is so that we can be authentically ourselves and not have to hide who we are. The problem with that is it's just not realistic for a lot of people. To take our story, for instance, we owned 2 CrossFit gyms at one time. When we got outed, it was off of a podcast that we were on, and somebody put all the pieces together. Over the 2 months immediately following the release of that podcast episode, we lost half of our gym membership. Think about that. Somebody quit their gym membership because they found out that the owners were in the lifestyle, and we were this close. I would say we were 30 days from filing bankruptcy, because it took us that long to recover, and we almost didn't recover from it. Now, we are thankful that we survived that, and now we can live this open and free lifestyle and be who we are. But we also may be really lucky, because it was that close to us shutting Naughty Gym down and going to work at Lowe's. Because sometimes, it's ridiculous to think that what somebody does in the privacy of their own bedroom can have such a dramatic impact on other people who it has no impact on, or shouldn't have any impact on. But people get all weird about the sex life of other people, and they will. Look, we are still, and this is 3 years after we got outed, we still get messages from people who just found out and want to send us some sort of hate mail.
Yeah. And we live in the deep South, though. We're in Alabama. So we realize that Alabama is very entrenched in religion, and so it may be different here than it is in the part of the world that you live in. But we wanted to live our authentic lives. We weren't willfully just hiding it because we were embarrassed. We were hiding it because we had a business to protect and children to feed. And we knew what the repercussions would be if we got outed.
And obviously the goal for all of this is for none of us to ever have to hide anymore. I have no idea how far we are away from that.
Well, Scott, one thing that I'll mention too about this is that, absolutely, there's such freedom in being out. I love it. And it took me a long time to be ready to do that. But I think that at least what Meshai and I are trying to bring to this is helping any of you that want to live loud and proud and want to do this and want to be authentic and to start making that change, which I think most of us would love to live in a world like that. I believe that when we do our own work about any of our own shame or our own static about it, so that we can present it to the people that we love preemptively, where we get to drive the narrative instead of they found out and they're gossiping and they've created this whole thing that we then have to tear down. I think I think it will happen faster the more of us that do that preemptively, proactively, and share the joys of it. That's one of the reasons we decided to come out when we did, because our daughter was getting to that age where, we weren't lying about Santa anymore. And here we are lying about this. And we had this "we don't lie" in our family policy. And I was so worried that if she found out, we were going to have sorry, the word static tonight. We were going to have all this static with her about, why did you lie to me? What's wrong? She was going to think there was something so wrong with it if she'd found out and we had to be defensive about it.
Exactly
So
what
that's
happened with us, Catherine.
Yep. Almost verbatim. Yep.
Scott, one of the things, I think you and I've had this conversation privately, at least. I don't think we've ever had it in public. Actually, a lot of you may not know this, but my uncle, I was raised by my grandparents next door to my uncle and his life partner, who were openly gay. And he was openly gay in the 60s, went to his 7th grade dance as Cinderella, got the living shit beat out of him. He was gay before it was acceptable to be gay. And I would say there's people today that are still treated that way by my redneck brethren down here who get called names and treated poorly, because there's this thing that happens, and it happens to all of us for some reason. When we find out about someone's sexual orientation, we think it has something to do with us. So Scott, you came out as bi, and I respect the living hell out of you for it, and have ever since the first time it came out of your mouth. And because it's not easy, because now a lot of men will look at you and wonder if you're thinking about them, because it must be about me. I mean, I know I'm the most attractive guy, you can't wait to get some of this sweet ass, but it's the reality though is my sexuality isn't about you. And whether we're talking about on social media or we're talking about in our personal lives, I think that's an important conversation to have. And yes, I've had hard versions of it where somebody asked me, are you a swinger? And I said, remember that time I told you about the first time I had anal sex? And they went, no, I don't remember that. I said, I know, because I didn't. Right. I don't talk to you about my sex life. That's why you don't know. So do you want to keep having this conversation? Because I'm going to make it weirder. Right.
I love that you said that, because it's also like it shapes people's paradigms of how they view themselves, right? Like it shakes my world to know that this exists. And then I have to then look at myself and go, like, do I even like the paradigms I've been subscribing to all this time? So while you're revealing your truth and just trying to be authentic with people, what's happening for them on the inside is being like, oh, now I have questions and I don't know if I want these questions. And so a lot of times the distance really isn't about you. It's about people that don't want to actually look at the paradigms that they've just been blindly looking and subscribing to all their lives.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot easier personally too, Meshai. Personally, because these are personal relationships. They can't bankrupt us like Scott and April just talked about. Professionally is, I think, scarier. Professionally could affect our ability to feed our families. Professionally could affect our ability to have an ongoing career for whatever's left of it, depending on our ages or where we stand in life. So I think there are two different things. And I think by and large, if you have been outed, don't hide, because now it looks like you did something wrong. Yeah. And even on social media, don't run. Whatever you do, don't run.
Yeah. Well, and it's, that's why I'm going back to the step 2 in our plan, which is create your elevator pitch, your story, your narrative, literally write it down. Yeah. Because not only will that come in handy in the event that you do get outed, you're going to be glad you had it. But at some point, you may also change your mind and say, you know what? I'm tired of hiding. I want to come out and just be me and be public about it. Now you've already got your pitch. You're ready to go. You know what you're going to say. You have your why, and it's important to have that information ready. And it's not just about professional either. We know, I think we all know another we won't mention their names, but another podcasting couple who shut the podcast down when they got outed. As bad as ours was, it does not hold a candle to what happened to them and to their kids. And I won't tell their story. It's not mine to tell, but it was
horrific.
Unbelievable. It was something a movie should be made about.
If anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we can
there's
start
a bunch.
Someone. I know Mitch and Cindy had said, I'm curious what the experts think about incrementally coming out, the pros and cons. Catherine or Meshai, what do you think about that?
That's not us.
Again, I do certainly, well, you guys certainly are too. I mean, I like the idea of breadcrumbing, as I said, where we talk about it more in like characters or situations and just keep people talking. I think that's maybe a way to help it be a little more digestible. Certainly when coming out to kids, I think it's important to actually do it incrementally so we don't overwhelm them. It's like this great advice I got about teaching kids about the birds and the bees when they're like, how did that baby get in your belly? Don't start talking about fallopian tubes. Like, Like, you don't need to go the whole gamut. So being able to do bits. And then the other thing is the incremental thing, as this works with children, but I think it works with adults too. Give them a little bit of information and then see where their questions are. Because that's going to tell, if you listen after you've told them something like this, they're going to tell you where their biggest concerns are in the questions they ask. And so that might be a way to keep it from being so overwhelming. But I don't know that there's a one way to go, and it might be different in different relationships. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I think, and that's effectively what we did. My path, funny enough, was a little different than his, but we started, I would say, centrifugally, where kind of like the spiral of the circle, we started at the very center with our children, because at the end of the day, that's the most impactful ones we had. And then we kind of worked our way outward. Family, extended family, people who mattered to us. And sometimes that overlapped and sometimes that was remarkably different. And I remember as I was getting to the outside of the circle, my boss was a big one. And it ended up being probably the best conversation I ever had about it, because at that point I was confident enough that I'd had the conversations prepped. Not much had changed from a relationship perspective in our lives with our kids, with our family, and our close friends. And his reaction was wonderful. I told him, hey, I'm not ashamed. I don't want you to apologize for me. I just don't want you to be blindsided because I care about you and what we do here together. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I may not be comfortable answering all of them. And he said, I respect you. I care about you. And I appreciate you wanting to be open with me. And I don't know
the other two.
Yeah, truth. And honestly, people may surprise you. I think that's more of the story, but that's centrifugal, dropping the breadcrumbs and working our way outward, and maybe not giving everything away, just enough.
Kids are another tough one, and they're entirely different than employers, right?
And each of our kids were different.
Very
how
much
we
so,
had the conversation.
Very much so. My daughter had a million questions, some of which made me uncomfortable, which is really hard to do.
Still today.
But I would say that when we talk about talking to our kids, we need to remember something. This world these kids are growing up in today is vastly different than the world we went to school in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're talking about, gender affirmation, being a conversation in fucking elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but sexuality is a part of a conversation they're having on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. There are kids who are being, I'm not going to say told, but being made to feel, maybe by peer pressure or maybe just by, extenuating circumstances or environmental circumstances.
They're inundated with
if they're not something, if they're not something, then they're not cool. So now they find out maybe that their parents, like maybe if they're not bi or they're not trans or they're not a different gender. I know I've, a lot of friends with kids that are in school today, and I'm like, wow, I don't even know how I would parent that. And I came out as ethically non-monogamous to my kids. But I think they're more equipped today once they are aware of sex and sexuality than we give them credit for, is what I'm saying, because of what they're seeing on a daily basis.
And that's a great internal conversation to have with your partner, like where in this echelon should be that demarcation point where we think they're at the point that they could understand enough, right? Because that's where we were at. We told the oldest first, then the middle child, but she had already been hip to it. I think she caught on first.
She was writing erotica at 10, so yeah.
As it turned out, she was right there.
on lit, actually. I had to take it away from her. She had 3,000 fans. It pissed me off. She's a better writer now.
Crazy as she was good at it. So you're like, I don't know how to wrap my head around this.
Yeah, it was an issue. But when we talk about stuff like that, I think it's important just to say, hey, your kids, your family, what they can take. If you're going to breadcrumb it, using Catherine's term, know what the breadcrumbs are and where you want it to take them. Because breadcrumbs are a path. What path are you leading them down, and how fast do you want them to get there?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to figure out how much disclosure, like that elevator speech or pitch that you have for people, like having it for different ones. Like, do you have like heart friends, like people that are basically like family? You tell them one particular thing. People that are friends that might see you out and about in the town, and you would tell those people a different thing. And then the rest of them is it that important for them to actually know that? And that's where the questions around privacy versus secrecy come into play. And then also like employers, like what do you tell your employers? I had like 3 different ones, and I told each of them something a little bit different based on like how big of an impact them knowing would affect me. And I also had to, like, if I'm completely honest, I had to quit one of my side jobs just because I knew that if it ever came out to them, it would affect more than just my work relationship. It would affect some friendships and religious circles. And so I had to like step away from that because I did want to live as openly and as authentically as I possibly could. And I know that's not accessible to everybody, but it was really important to me. So being able to figure out like how much disclosure you have and how much do people actually need to know, and it's really more of like covering my own ass at the end of the day. But I also really want to be as authentically myself as possible.
Yeah,
You know,
so different depending on what part of the country you live in too. I mean, it's so severe and ridiculous where we live in the deep South that even now, if a new friend, say we meet a couple at playing pickleball, which we do almost every night, and they say, "Hey, you guys this seems fun. Y'all want to go to dinner tonight?" Anytime we get an invite from a new person to go to dinner or go get drinks, we feel we owe them
Full disclosure
of who we are, because not that they deserve to know that about us, but because we have on numerous occasions not done that. And then those people will get seen with us at that restaurant and start getting messages before they've left the restaurant. What are you doing sitting over there with those swingers?
Yeah.
You know, Scott, you said something earlier, though, that I thought was really important, and we kind of glossed over it, which is, you know, tell people when you do have these conversations with people, tell them what you are and what you're not, because anything you don't tell them, they're going to make up the middle.
That's true. That's very much human nature.
And
right?
that's
To make up
such a
this gap.
huge point. And
Yeah.
because Scott is, you know, who he is, he didn't belabor the point. I'll belabor it for him. Do that. Make sure you guys tell people and make it part of your script. This is what we are and this is what we're not. And just because I am doesn't mean I want to fuck you. Okay. And you don't have to say that to your kids, please don't. But by all means, like everybody else, put them on that list. Just because I am in the lifestyle, just because I am ethically non-monogamous, just because I am or am not bisexual doesn't mean it has anything to do with you. That takes so much out of it because that's their biggest concern, right? When I was talking about, you know, what my uncle went through, yeah, everybody, you know, I mean, even my dad would not, my first name is Michael, and he will not let people call me Michael because he was afraid it would turn me gay. Think about that for a minute, because my uncle's name is Michael.
Yeah.
That's the country we grew up in. So fill in the blanks for him, to Scott's point. Scott, that was brilliant when you said that. And I meant to say something about it earlier, but
Yeah. There is still a lot of work to do to normalize this and normalize the conversation, but we can all do our part. Even if it's just starting in your own family unit, practicing having those conversations. The more you have those conversations, when we first started, it was super uncomfortable, super awkward. And now we don't even bat an eye. We care more about the people that we don't know that invite us to dinner than we do about somebody talking about us in this town now. We feel more protective of our friends. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up so we don't keep you much longer. We're going to let our speakers tell you guys where you can reach out to them if you have questions or you'd like to take advantage of some of their resources. And then before we go, there are events going on. You can go to open-love.org. There's events going on all week long. Live presentations, there's live events, all kinds of stuff. So go to that website and take advantage of some of the resources that they're offering this week. I'm going to start with you, Catherine. Will you let people know where they can find you?
Sure. I also wanted to remind you all that if you haven't been paying attention to the chat, we dumped a lot of resources in there. So go in there and capture them and put them somewhere where you can go to them later. I also wanted to share a story as a wrap up. We told our daughter when she was 11 and a half, which was kind of young, but it was the right time. And we told her it was for our marriage. It was making us stronger. All the things I said that I told you all. And she was smiling the whole time. And then I could tell she was about to cry. And I was like, what is it, baby? What's going on? And she's like, and we had explained to her that we needed to keep it quiet because of the small southern town we live in and blah, blah, blah. And we talked about tolerance. And she started crying and she said, I just don't understand, if this makes you so happy, why anybody wouldn't be happy for you. And I was like, oh my God, that precious heart is going to get broken. But to think about it, just kind of in that, like, where we have to go. And to your point, Mickey, about this generation coming up may make this very different. So I hope that you all can continue to do what makes you happy and not have other people be upset about it.
Yeah.
Amen.
Out of the mouth, babes. Okay, so we expansiveconnection.com/ENM. That's the spicy side, ethical non-monogamy, of our website. You can find our offerings. You can find all the podcasts we've been on. We offer self-study educational options. We offer group coaching. We also do one-on-one with couples, individuals, moresomes. There are 4 of us coaches. We all bring a different niche to the practice. It's also a collaborative practice. And so if I'm stumped, I go to these other 3 brilliant coaches and bounce things off. And so my clients get the benefit of not just my brain, but all of theirs. So it's a pretty exciting way to practice coaching and therapy. So please feel free to reach out and ask us questions. We share all sorts of resources on our in our mailing list and also on our Instagram page. So hope to see you.
Thank you. Meshai?
I would like to swap your daughter out for one of my kids. I get called bro and bro all the time, so that's not fair. I didn't get tears. You can find me at Meshai.d. Oh, no, the wrong one. Meshai at expansiveconnection.com. That's the right one. If you go into our page, you can click on the coaches and you'll see all of us and come check us out. And yes, if you want to bounce between all 3 of us, all 4 of us actually, because we've invited someone new. He's cool. Then please check us out, take a look, and have the experience of all of us, because we are a little different, but we love you all equally. So
Very cool. All right, Mickey and Mallory.
I mean, we're not the experts, but that would be Catherine and her team and Meshai. But we're casual swinger everywhere. Feel free to reach out. We're readily available, through the podcast or the toy store. We're community first. So again, not being experts, we're always open to having dialogue and being very transparent about our experiences and sharing resources and, just being here for our other community members.
That's right. You can find us on casualswinger.com, casualtoys.com, casualswingerweek.com, which is our Hito week. You guys can find us on Twitter. You can find us on SDC, SLS, Cassidy. We are Casual Swinger literally everywhere. You have questions, issues, comments, concerns. You want to talk about your life. You want to complain about your wife. You reach out to us and I will point you at Catherine and Meshai. So no, by all means, if you guys want to chat, we're here for it. I think if at this point, most of you, at least the faces I see out here, know us well enough to know we're here for you. We're part of this community. We don't stand on it. And we were honored to be included in this conversation and see you guys' beautiful faces. We love and miss all you guys. So.
Well, we appreciate you all so much for joining us. Mickey, Mallory, Catherine, and Meshai, we love you so much. And the 4 of them will also be at our Hito week in January 4th through the 11th. Be Better at Being Bad week. You can find Scott and I at naughtygym.com or info@naughtygym.com if you want to shoot us a message, if you have any questions. We will be sending the recording of this out to everybody, so you will have this for future reference if you need that. And then go to open-love.org, Week of Visibility, for all of the events that are coming up. Anything else?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to reiterate something. Yes, we have our full takeover week in January. It's the 2nd year that we've had the whole resort. Our first year, this past January, was super successful, in large part because of our presenters and our friends, Mickey and Mallory, who came and gave us tons of advice. And now, after throwing, I don't know how many weeks of their own, this next year, they will have their own full takeover week in May too. It's the 2 best weeks to go to Hito. So pick one of them or both of them and go.
We'll be at both of them, and so will they.
Yeah.
Why choose?
Why choose? Just move into Hito with us, because apparently we live there. I was called an honorary Jamaican last week. So.
All right, guys. Well, you have a good night. Again, thank you for joining us. Right after this, if anybody knows the Sexy Pineapple Express podcast with Kylie Ann, they are doing an Instagram live for openlove.org.
And one of our coaches is on there.
Yeah, Coach Cara will be on that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And see you soon.
Everybody take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.